Can everyone hear me very well?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to share this with you guys because when I first started my journey of startup and how naive I was and how excited I was, I've just learned so much in between then, from breaking down, crying and punching things to celebrating at super fancy restaurants and all the ups and downs in between. So I'm really excited because with my experience, I hope you can take something. That's my goal, you can take something from this. So this is my family. I have 3 children, 7, 5 and 2. The youngest one is Yank, who was born in America, but my wife, some of you got here, turned him into an Australian, so it's all right. So my company, Notis, was founded in 2013. Justin was actually one of our first mentors when I got a scholarship to go on to Curtin Ignition. And between 2013 and 2017 is one part of the journey, because in 2017 we raised our first round of funding from US investors, and then we moved over to the US in late 2017 as well. So our total amount that we've raised is a bit over 1.2 million Australian for Notis through various investors. And I'm going to talk about the investor relationships that I've had, so my experiences, the good and absolutely freaking terrible, and all the other things in between. And I'm open for questions. I'm not sure if at the end is the best, but I'm a big fan of questions and learning from each other. So 2013, as was mentioned, bootstrapping. So we bootstrapped Notis, we built a website, we built an app. I visited the US, I think 3 times around the 2013 to 2015, trying to learn about the college market, trying to learn about where our product fits. And I'll get to what our product does in a moment. So in 2017, we raised our first round of angel investment. Before 2017, I sold everything in my house, I packed up and I moved to Canada. And the reason I moved to Canada is you don't need a visa to live in Canada. You can just rock up and be like, yeah, I'm going to be here for 6 months. And they're like, all right, make sure you leave. Well then. And that was it. And then so we stayed there with my mother-in-law. So me, my wife, 2 kids in 1 bedroom for 6 months. And I would drive down from Alberta to Utah and try hit the investor market, try and hit the colleges, try and learn and get Notis funded. And it didn't work out. So I came back, got a loan off my dad. All right, filled everything back in my house, and then one of the investors called us and he was like, hey, you guys still looking for money? Yeah. So, yeah. And they're like, all right, well, we'll transfer some tomorrow. And that's the first thing I want you to learn from, is that we were getting money from our investors before any contracts were signed. And I look back now and I'm like, that was dumb. At the time I was like, dude, this guy's freaking awesome, man. Like, he obviously loves this. And he's just sending us money and we're starting that process. And for me, I'm like, well, great, we can start doing what we want to do. So we had angel investment, we moved to the US, and we hired US developers. And the reason I want to bring up US developers is just because they're local doesn't mean they're good. All right, so we spent probably about $210,000 with these US, Utah-based investors and wasted about $100,000 of that. All right, and it was just, like, they didn't listen, they didn't care, they were like, we're a dev shop, we're awesome, right? And they didn't have that customer service or that, what we needed. So just because they're local, even in Perth, anywhere you are, doesn't mean they are the right dev shop for you and your budget and your experience. So this gets us to the next part, where in 2018 we built out our first version, our second version of the app, but the version of the app that we were ready to push. And this is a bit of a picture of Notis and what we did. So we were a college communication platform. Notis comes from the name of, we are a digital notice board. So everything that you would see on a college campus, we put digitally. So housing, events, could be parties, jobs, internships, tutors, everything that you would have on a notice board around campus, we did digitally. So we partnered with 4 of the 4 major colleges in Utah. And this was one of our unique marketing ideas. We're like, hey, why don't we get a sweet RV, which is super cheap in the US. So, it was like $29,000 for this massive beast of a thing. It was huge. and let's go park it on a campus and just leave it there. So that's what we did. So their open week of university, RRV, with this huge billboard on the back, it's just the same aspects, sitting on campus. And we would go talk to people that would come in, we would have food, snacks, and they would chill out, and they'd be like, oh, Notis, this is the vibe, this is what they're doing, they're for the college students. So that was one of our unique marketing ideas. I do miss my F-150 coming to Perth without my truck. But that was one of the aspects. So this is this right here. So 2018, partnered with 4 colleges, we got 17,000 users in about a 16-month period. This is a on and off in the sense of development, marketing, and those types of processes. And then in 2018, the beginning of 2019, we raised another $500,000 US from a range of different investors again, and we'll get into that. So we went to a Lithuanian dev shop, which are amazing. For 80K, they literally rebuilt the whole platform. Amazing customer service. And my shameless plug is I do represent them now in Australia because I feel like there's a gap here. So if you do want to contact me about quotes, I can help in that sense. Then we pivoted. So we literally kind of threw out the college platform totally and moved to K through 12. And I can talk to you about that towards the end. So types of investors. You've probably heard of all these. And I'm going to talk a bit about how we related to these investors. So our very first investors were angel investors, and they were cowboys. They drove Lamborghinis, they rocked up to work, probably drunk and stoned and on drugs. They, girls hanging off the shoulders. That is why he literally transferred the money before he signed contracts, because he probably couldn't even sign it or read it. But, as I said, for me, I was like, sweet, whatever. Like, I don't care, you do your own thing, you just keep paying me. But that's the first thing, is they didn't, right? There was no schedule. And that's my first tip with dealing with investors, is make a schedule for your payments. Okay, because we would go, I literally tell you, in that 18-month period, we wasted 6 months because we never got paid. All right, it'd be 2 months, and I'd be like, hey man, can you pay us? Well, oh yeah, get more users. And you're like, transfer us some money, and then we can actually pay for marketing and our development. Oh yeah, okay, in 2 weeks. Oh yeah, in 2 weeks. And it'd be like 2 months later, we'd get a payment, and then the same thing. This is over the whole 18-month period. Okay, now I went in super naive, going, oh, they'll look after us. Okay, but they didn't, and you need to look after your company, and you need to look after your product, because a lot of the time, they're never going to think about it. Now, this is my experience. So these are angel investors, okay? Now, the other aspects, you know a lot about these, about family, friends, and fools. Great. These are probably the really, really good aspects of investors, okay? They're close, they trust you, they believe in you. And my experience is a lot of the time, it is about people believing in you to a degree, but you've also got to have a product to back that, and I'll get a bit towards that towards the end. Which is a clock, I'm sorry. Hopefully I don't run out of time. So the next one is family offices. I'm not sure if you've heard of those, but a family office could, for example, be the Walmart family. Very big in the US, and they do investments. They do whatever they want to do with all the money that they have. So family offices can also be very, very good, but they're very, very hard to get in. You literally have to know somebody that works with them, or somebody that plays golf with their buddies. Like, you can't just go to their office and pitch to them. They don't have pitch days, that's a network aspect. But family offices, in my opinion, with friends, families, and fools, are the best type of investors from my experience. They will make it personal, and they'll look after that experience. Venture capital firms. I'm not sure what you can say. So they can be fantastic, and in my opinion, they're definitely for those aspects of a proven product that you're growing. And I'll go back to that in a second as well. And the next one is banking loans. So a lot of people don't realize that I got approached all the time, like, hey, you're looking for investment? I'm like, yeah, always looking for investment. That's your job as a CEO, is when's the next funding coming in? And then they're like, oh yeah, we do banking. I'm like, oh, okay, see ya. Like, so a lot of banks, private banks or bigger banks, have an investment arm, but unfortunately for us, especially the main reason I'd say no, is that we were tech. We had no assets. We couldn't give a seller just the code, in the computer to someone later on. So a lot of those things didn't work out. But if you're a company that does have assets and things like that, banking options are great options. because you're not giving up equity. It's usually an interest aspect. But you can also get screwed over, like I did with the banking aspect as well, which we'll talk a bit more later on. So here's my number one slide regarding investors and pitching to investors. I've pitched Notis easily over 100 times, from the first days with Justin at Curtain Ignition, where the company used to be called What You Need, which is that's a terrible name. Why didn't you tell me earlier?
I didn't say something.
And then all the way to billionaires, investment firms, and things like that. So my main 4 tips for this is, when you're pitching, you need to realize that the people that you're pitching to, most of them aren't in your industry and have a clue what you're talking about. So we would go pitch to companies, investment firms all the time, and they'd be like, oh, education, is it really that big? Like, can you really get that good? I see it like, no, I don't think your idea is good enough. And so that's it, because they don't understand the industry. Okay, so you've got to understand, when you're pitching, 80% are not going to understand your product or your industry because they're not in it. The next is, this is the most frustrating one for me, the 10% that can't invest with you because of policy. And the reason that's frustrating is you go and sit down with them, but before you sit down with them, they already know they can't invest. And they just wasted your time, and for them, they're like, well, why don't you come back to us when you raise this fund? And they want to maybe invest in you in the future. But at that time, I was wasting my time because I needed investment right now. So it's when you need to do your due diligence on your investors. You need to go to that pitch and be like, hey, do you guys invest in people that are pre-revenue? Oh no, we only invest in people that are 100K or more a year. Oh, okay, we'll catch up with you next time. Those are the types of examples. They literally can't because their policies don't allow them to invest in you. The next 5% are empty promises. Okay, we had an empty promise that was so bad that I literally got an email this week from the attorney, an attorney at the Security Commission in the USA, because we reported a guy for fraud, for stealing money from us. Okay, so he was in the private banking industry. We had an amazing deal with them for millions of dollars, where we would pay interest. We had lawyers look over it, thousands of dollars of lawyers spent on this. We talked to so many different people. We paid our upfront interest, which is what we needed to do, and it was gone. 75K, gone. Just like that. Barely spoke to us afterwards. Oh yeah, I'm going to get your money. Yeah, we'll transfer it soon. Nothing ever happened. And my aspect there is, if it's too good, it is too good. I didn't believe that before, because I thought, oh no, I'm going to get the too good deal and it's going to work for me. So we're literally in the process of reporting him for fraud, and it's unfortunate because that came from other people that invested in our company, and I felt super bad. And this is where it's coming down to me breaking down, punching things, because I felt responsible. All right, but what I had to do to help myself, and even though I still am responsible to a degree, is I'm not psychic, and we tried to do our due diligence the best we could on their process, on their company, but it still happened. And it was not a fun few months after that. Other investors not happy with us and things like that. And the last 5%, you will get a deal. I strongly believe there is investors out there that will invest in your product right now, whether it's those angels, whether it's family, friends, and fools, whether it's venture capital firms. I do believe they're out there. It's the struggle of trying to find them and pitching over and over again. So, I guess I'm going to keep on this one, and I'm going to talk about the other bad thing that happened to us, to give you a scope of the craziness of the investment market. So the first company that invested in us, they invested $350,000 US. I'm happy to share it was 35% equity that they took, and we were happy with that because we weren't getting money from anywhere else. So we're like, yeah, sweet, this is an angel, it's a bit big, but great, we can go forward with this. And I wouldn't take that back. That was the step that we needed to take. So that investor had 2 partners. One partner in 2018, the end of 2018, stole money out of our bank account. And they stole money out of our bank account, and we didn't even know that they could access it. But in the US, to start a business account, 55% of the equity in the company has to be American. So because I didn't own 55% of the company, we had to bring other people in the company onto the bank account. And we thought they would just sign us to say, yep, they're there, that's who they are. But he had access to our account. And one of his vendors literally transferred $5,000 out of her account, admitted to it, knew who it went to, wouldn't rectify any of the issues. And so he was that type of person. Now, the other 50% partner, in late 2019, got arrested for $1 billion in fraud for the cryptocurrency market. So 8 years ago, when crypto was growing, he conned people to invest in his mining of cryptocurrency. He was a crypto billionaire, so he could easily pay it back, but I'm just saying, when that happened, then no one else would invest in us. So we're going to these pitch meetings, and people are like, yeah, look, love it. Oh, they're on your cap table? Come back later. But we're not like, they literally told us, as soon as they saw that this company was on our cap table, they were like, no, we've got other deals, it's too messy, we're not going to be involved. Now, one piece of good news. This morning, I finally got an email from that group on a buyout agreement to get them out of our company. So we are very, very excited to take that step forward and get them gone and keep raising money. So, I hope you can see why I'm here, sharing you the craziness of investors and how they literally are human. They're human. They're not perfect in what they do. And when you go into an investor meeting, I want you to have that attitude of, you know what, I'm here to protect my company and protect myself, not do whatever you say, because that's how I was when I first went into this market. So my first tips of raising funding or taking your idea is making sure your idea warrants an investment. Make sure it's big enough for investment. You've probably heard it before, they want to 10 times their money. And we know the reasons for it. It could be risk, it could be because they want to make money, which is they do, but make sure your idea warrants investment. The next, do your research, find out who else is doing it. That can be a really big benefit to you, is finding those competitors, seeing what you can do a bit better or different. Validation, very simple, similar to what David spoke about before. How good is your product? Have you already got paying clients? How are you going to prove it to those investors? The next one, the business model. How are you going to make money? Very simple, you have to work that out yourselves. And the next two things is know your investor. So the previous page, when you go, what type of investor are you pitching to? Are they a venture firm? You need to know them before every single meeting. And the last thing related to them before is update your deck. I have probably 50 decks in my computer. 50 different decks with slightly different changes depending on the investor. All right, I'm going to go into an investor meeting, and if they only invest $500,000, I'm not going to ask for $1 million from them. I'm going to ask for $500,000 from them. Okay, so you need to update your deck and change it every time you go to those investors, because you don't want to waste their time by just going in and like, yeah, we need $1 million, and they're like, look, we're an angel firm, like we don't do that. We only do 200,000. Oh, okay, well then I could do 200,000. Which part do you need? So you need to go in there prepared to what you're actually going to ask for and back that up with the data and information going forward. So elevator pitch. You guys, I'm sure you've heard of this. It's 1 minute. It's the idea, the proof, the ask. And this is what I believe is the most important thing for an elevator pitch. You need to go in there and be like, hey, I have this really awesome idea, and I've already proven it. That's how every investor meeting, in my opinion, should start. Okay, this is my idea, it's sweet, okay, I'm going to take over the world, and I've already proven it with 10,000 people, or I've already proven it with $10,000 in revenue. That's what they want to hear, and the whole point of the elevator pitch is the next meeting. Okay, can you get to that next meeting? Can you bring up that information? Then you have the 10 pitch slide deck. Okay, this is what you're going to use at competitions. Okay, a lot of competitions, they'll give you 5 minutes to pitch, 5 minutes of questions. It's also what you're going to email people. So when you email all these investors, you're going to email them the 10 pitch slide, okay, to all of these people, giving them a taste of that 1 minute elevator. What have you done? Now, this is the recommended from lots of different startup programs that I've done on how it should be placed in the slide. But I believe that changes depending on what stage of the company or investment you're at. And I'll go to that in a second. So the next one is the 20 plus slide pitch deck. Okay, this is the only time you use this deck is when you're in person. Okay. Now, I thought I was going to do a pitch like this when I spent $3,000 flying from Perth to San Diego to pitch to these investors who were really, really rich and had all this money to invest. And I was like, sweet, I'm gonna smash this pitch, I'm prepared, I'm gonna stand up, I'm gonna have a PowerPoint. And we sat down at lunch, and they're like, so, tell us about your company. And I'm like, we're doing that now? And then I'm like, should I get my laptop out? I had no idea what to do. So my aspect on pitches is 90% of them are never gonna be in a PowerPoint in front of a group of people. The only time you do that is just before you sign the document saying, here's the money. And that's probably because they're like, yep, we've already approved you for investment. Come into our board, pitch to our whole board just before we get this final stuff done. The rest of that are lunch meetings, coffees, all these types of meetings is how I've experienced. So I flew back from Perth and I'm like, what the frick? Why did I literally spend $3,000 to talk about my company for 15 minutes at a lunch? I'm glad they at least paid for lunch. but that was a crazy story on its own. Me and my business partner slept in a car, out front of the airport, because we didn't want to pay for accommodation before we flew out. It's never smelled so bad when I woke up. It was terrible. But they're the types of things that was one of my trips to the US, and I thought it was going to be something different. So I want you to prepare when you go to these meetings. What's it going to do? Now, because of COVID, it's over Zoom. I'm chatting to investors over Zoom, and it's not wasting time in that sense. It's way more effective in those aspects of it. So this is what the details. So you've got to get to the details, the finances, the innovation, what's the ask, give all those different types of examples of how you've already validated it. So, what's the time, sorry?
You've got probably 9 minutes.
9 minutes, awesome. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over my pitch deck for Notis. Okay, so this is what you'll see, our 10-slide pitch deck of what I will be sending to investors continually, until we get our next round, and then the same thing. I'll update the pitch deck when we want to raise our next round of funding again. Okay, so now I have changed mine compared to that 10-slide. Okay, that 10-slide talks about the problem, the opportunity, and goes down. The second thing, or the first thing I put in there, is our validation. Why are we going to work? Why are they going to invest in this? And this is because we've already raised funding, so we don't need to tell them about the basics of the idea. Okay, this isn't the first pitch, this is our later pitch. This is like, look, we've raised funding, and this is what we did with it, and this is why we've been so successful. So this is that slide. For me, this is the golden slide you need to have, is how have you validated your company? Okay, so for us, we had a 500% oversubscription on our pilot for our high schools. Okay, we had 8 high schools that used us for our test model. Let's talk about, we used to be in the colleges, but we realized K through 12 is way better for our product. And of that, we had over 40 more high schools that wanted to use us that we couldn't support because of the stage we were at. And I love that word, oversubscription. We're going to go on and we tell these investors, we had so many people that wanted to use us, we literally couldn't because we don't have any money. Give us the money and then we can hit these other numbers. So we had 33% of one of the high schools on the platform within the first few weeks, and this is about students. That should be 100% for how many schools wanted to keep using us, but I need to call one. Okay? And I'm never going to put anything on here that is BS. Okay? So it's going to be 90% until I call that school and figure out that it's 100% or it stays at 90. Now, in America, it's fluffed all the time. That is their culture. I've had to call out my business partner in investor meetings saying that's not actually the way it is, but saying it in obviously a different way. But they just fluff it up. He fluffs things up all the time. That's what they love to do. It's America, it's great, all right? So they're used to that culture, whereas Australia is not that culture at all. It has to be, well, show me, prove me that data, and I'll be able to prove this data. Okay. And the next key thing is what was our growth. So we had a 66% referral rate. We don't even have a contact form on our website. We had schools finding us through social media to be like, hey, we heard about Notis, can we use you? We had teachers leaving one school, going to another school, being like, hey, you guys should use Notis, and then they were coming on board like that. So we had a really, really good referral rate. So tell them your investors or you're pitching why you guys are so great and how you prove that. So the next thing is the pain. So this usually is the other way around, but our pain is that education communication is super poor. In the US, they're using GroupMe, or they're using text message, or they're trying to use Slack, right, for the whole school to do certain types of communication. We fix that hole for them. Limited engagement, and in the US, advertisement in schools is a big thing. Okay, the money doesn't go to the principal; it goes back into the school. So a lot of businesses pay for advertising, and we help connect those local businesses as well as our revenue, one of our revenue streams. So this is our product. So the next thing is we're going to show you how sexy our product is. So how sexy is your product? I'm not sure the vowel one, how, but maybe I'm sure it is. Yeah, so, but selling that, how good does it look? Why people engage? What's your selling point? So for us, we bring all of the communication into one place for the school, which is what they love. Okay, we built it like a social feed. Okay, we're not a social media, but it's how it's built is the user experience that students are used to. Okay, that's what they want to engage with. We're safe. Okay, only people can access it by the school through the school emails, and we're instant as well. So we give instant feedback, instant data back to the schools. Is essentially our platform. So we have our college platform, which is still available in that aspect, and then we have a K-12 platform, which is secure. So that's how we differentiate the differences of the two platforms. So this is the victory. Okay, so why are we so much more awesome than our competitors? Okay, you need to show this in some way where they realize you do have some sort of competitive edge. Okay, so, and this is how we displayed it. It shows a few people in the K-12 and a few people in the college market of our differences. So the next thing, the market opportunity. Okay, what can we reach? How can we reach them? You can see here, there's literally 134,000 schools in America compared to things like 35,000 something in Australia. Just in one district in Utah, there was 145,000 students, and that's just kind of like, let's say, the Shire of Callander, like one district. So huge numbers, which is why we went over to the US, is the difference. So the next thing is taking market. I don't like marketing, like how are you going to take the market? And for us, we have huge connections in the education industry that when we're ready, they'll be happy to push out Notis to their community to help us reach 40,000 schools instantly. So how are we going to take it? That's what investors also need to know as well. The next thing, so a bit more about the monetization, how we fit into where the schools and the businesses, what is the potential revenue. I don't feel like you should ever go to an investor meeting and be like, well, if we got 1%, okay, we're going to be this good. Nah, freaking tell them that you're going to get 20% of the market and you're going to make a ton of money. All right, don't go in there so confident that you're like 1%, no, it's nothing. Like we're so good, we know we're going to take 20, 30%. Okay, so, and you can do that by comparing to other products, other competitors. If one competitor has 50% of the market, but you're 100% better, then why can't you do that too? And share that with people. So the next thing, which is one of the most important aspects, is the team. So for us, excluding myself, clearly, so this guy here, Brad Bonham, is the #1 other person on our team. Okay, so he has the second fastest growing company in all of Utah. He provides furniture to Wayfair, Target, Walmart, his warehouses all over the world in the US. Okay, he is super recognized in the Utah startup community. So if he's on our table, we're like, hey, he invested $300,000 into us. He loves our company. He owns 10%, whatever it is. You tell those investors, and they're gonna be like, oh, sweet man, that guy did it, man. His company's worth nearly $1 billion. Surely he saw some potential in this. So who's on your team? Is it just you? And if it's only you, that's okay for the moment. But how can you get those advisors, those team? Now, on the 20-pitch slide deck, we have another slide that talks about all our advisors. And they could literally say, hey, you're in the ed tech space, do you like what we're doing? Yep, sweet. Hey, could you be an advisor? Yep, all right, sweet. And then now you put them on your deck. And you use them, obviously, in that sense. And then the last part is the ask. They need to know, this kind of comes back to that first question, are they even in your ballpark? Can they even invest in you? would they be willing to? So you tell them what you want, you tell them the runway, so how long you're going to last for. What's this amount of money? How long is it going to last? What are you going to use it for? You know, what are your goals on the right, and when will you meet them, and what would that mean going forward? So the last aspect that I want to share, these are the top 3. I said in my description, I'm going to share the top 3 things that I believe investors look for, and that is validation is the number 1 thing. And if you're doing it well, as mentioned before, you may not even need investment. If you've got those paying customers, if you've got those products. Now, validation could be so different. For us, validation, 17,000 students on our platform using it. All right, so that's going to validate us for the next investment. Okay, opportunity. How big can Notis get? Well, if we got 50% of the US market, okay, we're making like $230 million a year. That's all right. So how big is the opportunity for your company? How can you get there? And you can use competitors to show the opportunity of where you can go. And the next aspect is the team. Who's on your team? How are they going to make it succeed, and how are they going to make it work? So yeah, that's it. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. This is my email, but with your LinkedIn, just send me a message as well, so I know like why you're trying to connect with me. And then I'll be happy to connect. But you know, as we all get messages from people, so yeah, I hope that helps.
The little one I get is, hi, I'm a business coach.
Yeah. You're like, Justin, you're already one of my connections.
It just seems like there's a thing at the moment, business coaches has like flooded the market on LinkedIn. It's like, I'm a business coach. Or leads, that's the other one.
Sure.
I get you leads. You know, like this one.
But if there's time, I'll be happy to ask any questions.
Yeah, no, as we said, so thank you very much for